Origin Chess Home UX, and this is how Russian spies are attacking Europe by channel Task and Purpose. Okay, this is a Task and Purpose video about, I guess, ongoing thing. Yeah, this is an appropriate video because like there was a fire in Moscow. People told me like there have been attacks in USA which could have been like from Russia or something. So FSB or whatever spy thing, right? So this video is appropriate in that way. I guess it's gonna go into that sabotage spy type of way of things that's happening today, because we won't hear about details of things that are going on today until many years from now, right? Because that's how spy things goes at this level. So shit might be happening that governments know about, agencies know about, but people don't, like us basically. So I guess through some leaks and expert, maybe Task and Purpose knows something. We'll learn that in this video, I guess. But yeah, it's interesting. I'm pretty sure there was like a recent like some social media thing that FSB put out, like the pro-Ukrainian social media people who's like making money for Ukraine by spreading propaganda or something, like taking a hit on them or something. I don't know, there was something like that, right? They took down something like that. So people like Task and Purpose and something might be at risk or something. I don't know. Yeah, this how the hell you are a YouTuber, you make content and you're the one who's under like like threat from FSB or something. FSB, that's the name of new KGB or something. I don't know. But how are you under threat if you're a YouTuber and just make videos? Apparently you're under threat as well. There you go. So Task and Purpose, there are other like enforcer people like that would be like more under risk. I don't know. Would FSB do that? Would they come after? Like, wouldn't that be like too much? Like, why would you go all the way America to target these creators or something? And what's that gonna get you, right? Like, I don't know. I'm guessing they were talking about people in Ukraine or around Ukraine who's like spreading propaganda and making money for the Ukrainian government or something. I think that's what they meant, not just anybody. But who knows? But it's gonna be an interesting video. Let's do this one. Remember, we'll flag my Rickson don't subscribe, so I know which type of videos to react to more. Check out the Rickson, there's a link in the season. And yeah, let's do it.
There's a hidden spy war between the East and West that's heating up, and it's unlike anything we've seen since the Cold War. Russian spies have become increasingly brazen, recruiting a...
By the way, the Imperium of War, right? Warhammer t-shirt feels appropriate with all the shit going on. We are reaching this point pretty soon.
Small army in Europe for arson, assassinations, disinformation campaigns, and sabotage. Jens Stoltenberg, Secretary of NATO, had this to say at the NATO summit in Washington.
What I can say is that we have seen a pattern, a Russian campaign organized by the security services to conduct hostile actions against NATO allies across the alliance.
Their goal is to undermine Ukraine's war efforts and reduce their international support. I want to know, how successful have they been, and what are NATO countries doing to counter these attacks? After Russia's initial invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, European governments collectively ejected 600 individuals who were officially diplomats, all of whom were suspected of being Russian spies, many of whom were working at embassies and high-level government positions. They were all ejected out of Europe. Russia did the same exact thing with ejecting several US personnel from the embassies in Moscow. Embassies are often hotbeds for espionage and spy activity. Evidence that the initial purge of Russian agents was effective comes from the BND. That's Germany's foreign intelligence agency. They claim that recruiting a new person to spy in Europe now costs the Kremlin about $430,000 to incentivize them to take such a high risk of being captured. That's 12 times what my CIA handler pays me. Over the course of the last 2 years, the Russian FSB has cobbled together enough capability to attempt one of, I think, their most risky missions in recent history. This is the CEO of German defense company Rheinmetall. His name is
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, look man, you can have any opinions about Russian military army based on the things going on, based on evidence. But one thing's for damn sure, FSB is like, there was like an instance where like a Putin's rival mysteriously got poisoned in London, I think. And shit like this happens all the time, right? Like the Russian spies or Russian things or hackers were involved in like 2016 presidency election in USA. Like even CIA and FBI came out like, yeah, this is true. We found evidence, this is true. So you can say like FSB is still working the spy level, right? Because CIA and all these agencies, are they working at that level? That type of like Cold War spy level shit? Maybe they are, but we're just not hearing about that. But when it comes to FSB, we know that they are working at that level, right? Like, you know, all those like Hollywood movie type shit, they're probably doing that because we hear about this all the time.
Armin Papager. Now, in early July 2024, the United States government claimed that they had helped foil a plot by the Kremlin to assassinate him. Rheinmetall is one of Germany's largest defense firms and one of the main companies producing 155 artillery shells and armored vehicles sent to Ukraine. They also plan to open an armored vehicle production facility on Ukrainian soil in the next few weeks. That's a first, an action that represents a major escalation of their support. But first, I want to tell you about this video sponsor, PDS.
German engineering in Ukraine, that's a strong thing, not gonna lie. For Russia, that's a blow. If you have German engineers building tanks for your enemy in basically the soil that you're attacking, that's a big ass blow. Like this is one of the steps that makes Ukraine stronger, right? You can, it's like, you know, what is it called? You can give a food to, I don't know, beggar. I'm butchering the quote, but you can give food to a beggar and he'll eat for a day. But you teach this beggar or something and he'll eat for his whole entire life or something. Basically that type of shit. You can give Ukrainians all this equipment and it will work until it will work. You give them production line, that shit is next level, right? So it's literal factory, German factories they're putting there.
Yes, debt. Pretty much everyone knows how easy it is to get into debt, but the toughest part is that the system is set up so that we stay in debt as long as possible. That's why PDS Debt strives to understand you.
Yeah, people, go to pdsdebt.com/task23 and support this channel. It's an awesome channel. Covers topic really fast, which I really like. It's like up to date. Usually big channels takes like a month or something or multiple weeks to come with some great production video. Task and Purpose does the same thing but really fast. I don't know how he manages script and all this editing that fast, but there you go.
Analysis today. Now back to the episode. And it wasn't just the CEO Armin Papager. Spies were also after several other CEOs of defense companies throughout Europe, but the plot to kill him was the furthest along. To put this into historical perspective, even during the height of the Cold War, espionage activities between the West and the Soviet Union, they were intense. But assassination attempts on high-profile industrial leaders, that was relatively rare. Assassination attempts on heads of state wasn't unheard of, but most operations focused on gathering intelligence rather than targeted killings. Can't we have a little decorum in the cutthroat world of spies? And if Papager had been killed, he would have been replaced the next day and operations would have continued for Rheinmetall. So what's the point of such—
Back in my day, we just used to spy on their shit. We just used to like look outside the window when they were having sex just to videotape them and blackmail them. That was normal spy thing. We didn't kill people. We are not scum. Come on. Back in our day, we used to do complicated thing like blackmailing, torturing, kidnapping, but never killing.
Such a mission. It's about creating fear and uncertainty among the leadership of defense companies all across Europe, especially smaller ones. Think about it. If you're an executive at a defense firm and you hear that your peer was just taken out by Russian agents, you might start to reconsider how aggressively you support Ukraine. Or maybe you would double down support, and that's what we in the business call blowback. It can also throw the company into disarray and delay projects.
What we have seen over the last months is that NATO allies have not been intimidated. NATO allies are actually stepping up their support, delivering more aid to Ukraine.
But you're about to find out this is just the tippy-top iceberg of the spy war. It's easy to forget what intelligence consists of: luck and speculation. It's important for us to keep in mind some perspective on this. The spy v spy world is a two-way street. Take a look at this tweet from the American CIA, written in Russian.
Yeah, look at statistics. That's what the main thing is when it comes to spy, because humans get confused when this is a statistic. That's why whenever they say, oh, wait a minute, of all the people, I won the lottery, like God must be looking down upon me or something, like luck, this and that. Whenever we see statistic, like somebody gets an accident, what are the chances I was the one who got an accident amongst all these people? So spy stuff usually work with statistic. There is probability of everything, you know, approach with that. Yeah, you're gonna fail, but usually statistics are gonna be strong enough, right? If something like indicates 70-80% is gonna be successful, it's probably gonna be, right? So it's not, so obviously there's 20% fail and it might happen, but yeah, that's the thing, you take your chances.
Russian, and it says, why I contacted the CIA for the sake of the motherland. The CIA produced video attached to that tweet is meant to appeal to Russian intelligence workers who might want to do a little flippy-floppy on who signs their paychecks and funnel them intel to the
Trust
CIA.
CIA.
According to CIA Director William Burns, the Wagner coup attempt against Putin about a year ago led to this.
That disaffection creates a once-in-a-generation opportunity for us at CIA. We're not letting it go to waste.
These videos and efforts by the CIA spies are trying to exploit the...
Why are you talking like that? Like, aren't you supposed to keep that down low? I mean, I get it, like propaganda video, that makes sense. But why are you so openly like, okay, we at CIA, capitalizing on this thing that we're gonna be profiting on? Like, why give your attention out like that? Like, keep it in down low.
Intelligence failures that led to many of the problems faced by Russia in the early days of the war. They're hoping some of them might feel betrayed enough to go to the CIA as informants. One of the most infamous cases of this actually working kind of to some degree comes from the story of Maxim Kuzminov. Now, Kuzminov was a Russian Mi-8 helicopter pilot who in the summer of 2023 took off from an airfield in Kursk on a routine cargo mission. He's a Russian aviation pilot, and he used the opportunity to slip over the Ukrainian border, where he was met by a member of the Ukrainian intelligence group. They had pre-planned this, and he knew that he was going to defect. So when he defected to Ukraine, he brought along with him a stack of secret war documents. He also was paid about $500,000, $500,000, which I'm sure made the decision a little easier for him. Now, Kuzminov went on to conduct a series of interviews condemning the war and explaining why he decided to defect, saying, quote, "I understand who was on the side of good and who was on the side of truth." The head of Russia's intelligence agency, Sergei Naryshkin, was not cool with this. Kuzminov was staying at a resort village in southern Spain. How he was tracked down was not clear, but he reportedly frequented local bars that were popular with Russian clientele, drove around in a luxury car, and he lavishly spent the $500,000 given to him by the Ukrainian government. The area was also known as a hotspot of Russian organized crime and gang activity. On the 13th of February, 2 men shot and killed Kuzminov, putting 6 bullets into him, before quickly re-entering their own vehicle and running over him as they escaped. Spanish intelligence quickly blamed the Kremlin for the actions on their soil, and while Russia never officially acknowledged the assassination, Sergei Naryshkin responded afterwards that Kuzminov was a, quote, moral corpse. That's a quote from him. So he neither confirmed nor denied their involvement, but all the signs pointed to them.
Who else? Aliens? Who else would have done that? That is insanity. I didn't see this turning like that. I didn't see this story going in that direction. That's dark. What the fuck? Oh my god.
Welcome to my barely credible spy briefing. Please take a seat. First slide. As Timothy points out here, I believe the Kremlin is already in a hybrid war with NATO and the EU, but they purposely keep their attacks just under the threshold of NATO's Article 5 so as to avoid a full-blown case of war. Take a look at this map here. It has a list of Russian spy acts of sabotage throughout all of Europe. We can see opposition protests are being sponsored in Moldova, targeted beatings of Russian opposition leaders in Latvia. Leonid Volkin lives here in exile, and an attacker sprayed him with tear gas and hit him over the head with a hammer, trying to kill him. Coincidence? I think not. Next slide. But I want to draw your attention to the problem of signals jamming. GPS signal jamming is happening throughout the Baltic states, which I believe is being conducted from Russia's Sandwich territory in Kaliningrad. This is worse than just being forced to go back to printing out maps on MapQuest. This is dangerous because it also shuts down GPS capabilities for military and civilian aircraft, as well as ships.
Mostly civilian. Military, like, okay, but civilian. Too many commercial planes, man. They're basically blind if they go with that shit. That's dangerous, right? If you're a good pilot, like, sure, but yeah, that's fucked up.
Which depend on GPS to safely navigate. Russian agents accomplished this by essentially blasting a powerful signal to interfere. It's like yelling into a loudspeaker to drown everything else out. So far,
yeah, that's not hard. If you have enough power, you can do it, and yeah, you can find enough power.
This is just a pain in the butt because there's backup systems, but Kerr Giles, director of the Conflict Studies Research Center, said that he believes this is Russia testing the ability of Europe, testing them to see if they can completely shut down air traffic and missile strikes in the future. Now, next slide. Last slide, sorry. Have you heard of Russia's GRU Unit 29155? They're the FSB unit behind sabotage and hacking throughout all of Europe. They've operated in secret since...
Why do you have faces of them? Aren't they supposed to be like top secret, nobody knows their faces type of way? Come on.
At least 2008. but its existence only became publicly known in 2019. They have one job: destabilize Europe. They wake up and they think about destabilizing Europe. They have lunch, they think about destabilizing Europe, and they go to bed dreaming.
Basically, just cause 3 chaos meter. Their job is to raise chaos meter, I guess.
About destabilizing Europe. Unit 29155 was allegedly behind the 2016 coup plot in Montenegro to assassinate the prime minister. And why were they doing this? It was an attempt to stop them from joining NATO at the time. This failed ultimately, but the list goes on. They tried to poison a former Russian intelligence officer on UK soil. Bellingcat is the top open source intelligence team on this topic. They figured out that travel data of GRU officers in and out of Bulgaria lined up with a series of mysterious explosions at weapon facilities in 2015. Coincidence? I think not. 29155 is the team that conducts cyber attacks that have cost billions of dollars in damage. So if you take anything away from this barely credible defense briefing, it's that warfare has changed. It looks very different today. Spyfare has changed as well in the modern age of technologically advanced systems. What took a bomb 30 years ago now takes a few clicks of a button to do just as much damage. And I'm not convinced that we found a good way to fight back against it yet. Russia's trend on political assassinations has been the not-so-subtle approach in an effort to use them as messages to those who would betray the Kremlin. Kuzminov's death echoes the style of previous killings, such as the attempted poisoning of Sergei Skripal in 2018 in England, or the string of Russian oligarchs who mysteriously fell out of windows to their demise since the outbreak of the war. But one of the main styles of the attacks that's been a running theme that I've noticed...
I'm pretty sure Putin said, like, I just have a blessing that people go against me. Some kind of accident happened to them with a smirk or something. Like, do you need more evidence than that? Come on.
In the past year has been arson strikes by Russian operatives. The MO across the board is a Russian handler enlists the help of regular people in like Poland, Germany, the UK, for example, and they get them to commit these acts sometimes without even knowing that they're working for Russia. They just think they're earning a couple of bucks. This sounds kind of ridiculous, right? To someone like me, how does someone go about agreeing to that? Well, the Russian handlers start them off by paying them really small amounts, like $7 to do so.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all. There are many people who like would do this type of shit just for simple money. Few $1,000 or something. There you go. That's enough for them. Like, we have burned the shit up because they do sabotage and, you know, like stealing and like breaking into things. So it's not that hard to find people like this. It is ridiculous when you want to do this type of shit, right? It's very easy to find people like that and just do it, which is frightening.
Some anti-Ukrainian graffiti. This is known as what's called the foot in the door technique. It's a psychological effect. This concept is based on the idea that if someone agrees to a small request first, they're more likely to agree to a larger request later. This technique works because the initial small agreement creates a sense of commitment in the person, making them more likely to comply with subsequent larger requests to maintain that consistency. One day you're helping your friend Boris out, the next day you're firebombing warehouses in Poland. Since many of the potential Russian agents were kicked out of Europe, the FSB is now using these kind of local proxies, and they communicate with them through Telegram and other secure networks that are often affiliated with gangs and criminal organizations who carry out their work on the ground. Quote, there are some who become spies for money, or out of the vanity and megalomania, or out of ambition, or out of desire for thrills. But the malady of our time is those who become spies out of idealism. Arson attacks conducted at warehouses.
Was that translation from Russian? Because it felt all over the place, the wording. But yeah, it's frightening that an agency can literally find anonymous people and just pay them to do things like this, right? I thought drones were like scary things because they can just like evade everything and it's cheap and can attack basically anything like tanks and things. But yeah, in spy world, this is even more easier, right? You see this shit in Hollywood all the time, but yeah, it makes sense in real world as well. So CIA, FSB, all these spy agencies could do things like this and probably does do things like this. Most of them you don't even hear about. So like all the things you hear about, like some kind of a thing happened in the world, what are the chances like some agency was involved there, right? This is all like Jason Bourne type shit, but it might be real, right? That's insane.
in Poland that hold Western military equipment destined for Ukraine has also been reported. These sabotage efforts have been linked to arson on warehouses in England with communications gear meant for Ukraine. This might seem like a coincidence, right? I'm just putting all the pieces together myself and connecting the dots that don't really exist. But it gets really fishy when you find out another warehouse owned by the same company was hit in Spain, a paint factory in Poland, several different private homes in Latvia, even an arson attack on an IKEA store in Lithuania. This is alleged to be the work of Kremlin agents, but haven't we all wanted to burn down
Why IKEA though? I don't get that. Like, why would you attack IKEA? What does IKEA has to do with anything? Yeah, okay, like too many trends. Like after that, like you have to connect the dots. Like, oh, come on, all of that is coincidence. But is Kremlin trying to hide that? I'm pretty sure they're trying to send out the message. Like, they're not trying to hide it. Like, we are the one behind this. Watch out. They're trying to send a message, right? That must be the case.
an IKEA before? Torching places is a preferred method because it doesn't require transporting weapons and can be made on location with less links back to Moscow. Fighting back has been a challenge for NATO and the EU because there's this lack of mutual trust between nations. Not entirely, but at this level, right? Because counterintelligence operations are typically considered a domestic affair. It'd be like giving your phone and password away to your neighbor and telling them, hey, don't go snooping around in there.
Why would you not trust me? I'm the CIA. And everybody just looks around, there's a cricket sound in the background, like, really? Really? MI6 and CIA communicating both as soon as both of them leave, like, that son of a bitch. So he's hiding something. So yeah, this shit's never gonna work, right? Them working together, no.
One of the methods used by the CIA and MI6 is a detection technique that includes making citizens aware of what the dangers are. Much of their intelligence comes from ordinary people noticing something's off. These developments are nothing new if you've been closely monitoring this space. Even as early as October 2014, a Czech arms depot that had weapons stored to be sent to Ukraine was destroyed by Russian intelligence agents. They planted explosives at the site that killed 2 innocent workers there. Bellingcat revealed that this was the work of Unit 29155 that I mentioned earlier. Now, I'm not the kind of person to see KGB agents in my cereal in the morning, but it shouldn't really be surprising that we're seeing all this. We're sending a lot of weapons to Ukraine, and those weapons are being used against Russia, so I'm kind of surprised that we're not seeing more of this. But that's why we're seeing suspicious things like these and recent explosions at the BAE Systems manufacturing factory in Wales, and it starts to look like Russian agents were involved there too. I could go on and on about these fires, arson attacks that also broke out in Berlin and even at an artillery production plant in Pennsylvania in the United States, although that probably was just an accident, because it's also true that producing explosives is dangerous work and it always has been. If I had to guess, Russia's...
In America, I mean, people have told me, but it's like Europe makes sense. If FSB went all the way to America, did things like, it's risky. If they get caught in America, like, I don't know, that's risky. So I don't know about America, but yeah, Europe. I mean, it makes sense. This is not even some sneaky thing that Russia is doing. Anybody who's trying to help out Ukraine, they are attacking that because they are in war with Ukraine. It just makes sense, right? It's not some far-fetched things. It makes sense they would do that. They have capabilities of FSB, they have capability of espionage and spies and all that, right? So they're going to utilize that, and it's working, right? That doesn't feel that far-fetched, right? Yeah, obviously.
Concerned about escalating the conflict, like how the West says that they're concerned about escalating. If Moscow was to be more overt and cause more damage, then NATO could decide to retaliate by sending more military aid to Ukraine. I think the main objective for these Russian agents is to sow fear among people in Europe, to degrade support without doing anything that would show up in international headlines. From Moscow's perspective, these actions are useful because there's now an added hidden cost.
Yeah, I don't know about the fear factor though, right? Because I'm not sure if like Putin and Kremlin is really assessing everybody right, assessing Europe right way. Because if anything, you think like because Russia's attack on Ukraine, everybody else would be afraid and try to not piss off Russia. But you know, Sweden, places like that, places like that basically just like join NATO, right? Wait a minute, am I messing the names up? I don't know. Yeah, but with that country. Basically joined NATO, right? Saab and everything now providing support to Ukraine. And it's like they had enough of Russia and whatever. They didn't get scared. They got pissed off. So the more you do this, the more you threaten people. Rather than getting scared for their life, they might get pissed off and like support more. Like Task and Purpose said, like it might backfire, which is kinda is happening. So it's always a gamble. Are you scaring people, or are you like angering people to go against you? Right? The latter thing is like feeling more true, but who knows? Over time, fear might overwhelm things, and people will be like, "Oh, this is too much for me. Okay, this is not my war." Might walk away, and who knows? Russia might win in that way. But in short term, right now, people are getting angry more than getting scared. I don't know. That's how it feels.
Applied to weapons transfers because NATO needs to tighten security in the supply chain. This slows down the speed of ammunition transfers to Ukraine as well. What I'm observing is a lot of little fires, probably a bad analogy, but it's a dozen of little attacks, and they're barely big enough to make the local news in whatever said country in Europe that you find this happening in. It's in tiny publications. You'll see a small article about Russian operatives accused of plotting attacks on US military bases in Germany, but there's always this facade of plausible deniability around them, always with information on how Moscow denies it. A Russian embassy in Germany, for instance, made a Facebook post saying, quote, "We reject attempts to find the involvement of Russian special services in the development of alleged plans to attack military facilities located in Germany, including American bases, as absurd and ridiculous." Not sure what's less credible, hearing it from Russia or
I mean, there is that element, right? I mean, this works both ways. Yes, it could be FSB, but maybe it's not. Right, it's just some kind of a failure or some kind of a fire happens. It's dangerous, right? Sometimes things just happen, and people are like, must be Russians. Not really, right? I don't know. Like it said, there's hysteria, right? Hysteria is like a real thing. Hysteria does happen. Like people might see Russians. Oh my God, that must be Russians. That must be something just got burned up. That must be Russians. Not really. Right, shit just happens sometimes. I don't know. And throughout the history, the hysteria has been like really overwhelming factor in people's mind. So most of the time, it's probably not the thing you're thinking, but it's just like it's the thing that's panicking people. So that's how they think it, right? Oh, there's a ghost there. There's a ghost there. People will see ghost everywhere after that, right? Because it's in the air. It's the panic, right? I don't know.
Hearing it in Facebook in general, but their plans include conducting sabotage attacks on military targets inside Germany, including the Ramstein Air Base, which serves as one of the central hubs of American military operations in Europe. A family of Russian spies was recently living in Argentina who were recently released in a high-profile prisoner exchange. The children weren't even aware that they were Russian until they got off the plane from the prisoner exchange and hugged Putin, not knowing who he was. I used to love that TV show, The Americans, and this seems weirdly like a scene exactly from that show that takes place in the Cold War era. You can't come forward against the...
I loved that show. I don't know if I finished it, but I'm pretty sure I went all the way to the end. I think I haven't finished the last season or something. I don't know. I just stopped for whatever reason. But yeah, that show was so fucking awesome. I loved the psychological emotion, struggle of loyalty towards your country or your family. That was so good, right? All the way, that was awesome. But yeah, imagine those kids like, okay, I guess we are Russian now. What's happening, right? I don't know.
World's most powerful intelligence agencies and be completely free from risk. Spycraft has changed quite a bit since the end of the Cold War. Back in the 60s and 80s at its peak, it was a bit more ideologically based. You got your capitalism versus your communism. Now, in 2024, their focus is almost entirely on disrupting practical things like Ukraine's ability to defend itself. And this is being done in ways not possible since 40 years ago, with the advent of cyber operations, social media, and communications equipment that would make even Q blush. On March 5th, 2024, Germany reported that a high-level classified phone call was intercepted after it was mistakenly not made on a secure line. So it's not just explosives going on here, we've also got intelligence communications at the digital level. The call involved Lieutenant General Gerhatz of the German Luftwaffe discussing delivery of Taurus cruise missiles to Ukraine that had not been publicly or national government approved yet, while hinting that the British military forces had been sent to Kyiv to train soldiers on how to operate RQ-7 Shadow drones. The whole thing was a big kerfuffle and a mess. The entire 30-minute conversation was leaked by Russian state media. The conversation sparked controversy within the German government, not just about the actual call being compromised, but about aiding Ukraine as a whole, with many, particularly the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, refusing to send Taurus ammunition. while others within the government, like the National Green Party, strongly supported the additional aid. When the political party founded on ecology and non-violence tells you to...
So National Green Party wants to send ammunition and munitions, everything, bombs and things. It's a Green Party, okay.
Send missiles, you know things are going bad. Having spies conducting sexy operations like blowing up bridges and sabotaging military bases and sleeping with clandestine hunky men and women all across the European landscape, it's useful to a certain degree, but these political underminings that are exactly how Russia is looking to exploit their espionage capabilities. Bridges can be repaired, bases can be defended, but sowing political instability is where they get a real return on their investment. Ukraine, by nearly all accounts, is entirely dependent on lethal foreign aid in order to continue to defend itself against the Russian invasion. If the Kremlin is able to turn popular opinion against Ukraine, or at the very least force opposition politicians to dig their own trenches deeper, then it's one less pallet of weapons and ammo the Russian military will be on the receiving end of. Don't worry, it doesn't stop there, it gets a lot weirder. In February 2024, Vektomov, an assistant to the federal branch of the Alternative for German Party, was outed as working with Russia's intelligence branch, the FSB. He was tasked with helping to politically destabilize the German parliament and prevent Leopard main battle tanks from being delivered to Ukraine. He failed in that attempt, but it did reveal something, right? Germany has been particularly vulnerable to these kinds of Russian intrusions, due to both their historical relationship with the Cold War and the deep economic relationship over the last 3 decades. Because half of Germany, as you might remember, was under Soviet control after World War II, there's a large ethnically Russian population still living there to this day of about 3.5 million people, according to...
Hold up there, what do they feel? 3.5 million in Germany, that's a big number, right? What do they feel about this thing? Like, are those the people like, oh, we are Germans, not Russians? Like, even though we are ethnically Russian, we are Germans and we don't like this thing. Are they Western thinking like that, or like they're like conflicted about? I don't know.
To a 2018 census, after the Cold War ended, Germany adopted primarily an economic form of diplomacy with Russia, which led to Russian nationals heavily involved in the financial and, by extension, government positions there. Over the 600 suspected agents who we talked about before in the beginning of the video who were removed from Europe, 40 alone were working in the Russian embassy located in Berlin. When sorrows come, they come not single spies, but in battalions. Depending on how many Tom Clancy novels you read, it might surprise you to hear that Austria is a major hotspot for disruptive counterintelligence operations. On March 29, 2024, a former Austrian intelligence officer of the BVT, Ott, was arrested under suspicion that they'd been providing secret information from national police databases on an almost daily basis to the Kremlin. This kicked off a scandal in Austrian parliament, which is due for elections later this year, and the result of this election...
Why Austria though? That doesn't make sense to me. What? I don't get it. It's just like... just enough removed from Germany that they can't... what does Austria... Why Austria though? Like, somebody comment down in detail. What's that about?
Could lead to an interesting change for how Austria regards foreign spies on their soil. See, while most of us think of Austria as being incredibly westward-leaning and generally opposed to Russian interference, the same way that its neighbors are, but in reality, it's a bit different. While Austria, ideologically at the very least, is very much in tune with the rest of Europe, being part of the EU, they're very intentionally not part of NATO, and they've kept a high level of relations with Russia since the end of the Cold War.
What?
Austria operates off a declaration of neutrality, which is one of the major conditions of their constitution since 1955.
I guess Austria is trying to like get away from Germany as whole, because there was a time they were like one part in a way with the different things, right? Not one part, but there's like borders are always like Prussia, then Austria, Austria-Hungary, then like Germany, Austria, like they kind of become like that. So I guess they're trying to stay away from Germany, and the only way they can do that is stay away from NATO and like have good relations with Russia. That could be the case, but I didn't see this coming. Austria always assumed like it's like just like Germany, just another like German-speaking people with great vehicles like KTMs and things. Like, oh, look at this, just like Germany. I didn't know that they were like this. Come on.
in order for it to no longer have been occupied in the same way Germany was after 1945. Not only can Austria not constitutionally join NATO, they can't join any military alliance at all, having any foreign military bases inside of their borders, or participate in a war. This resulted in some really interesting laws surrounding foreign espionage inside their country. According to sections 254, 256, 319 of the Austrian espionage law, it's illegal to leak their own state secrets and illegal to operate any kind of clandestine military or government intelligence services inside their borders. But, and this is the most important part, only if it is specifically detrimental to Austria itself.
Anybody else can get screw themselves. It's only about Austria. Besides Austria, you can do anything yet.
Short.
It's free real estate.
This led to Vienna, located smack dab in the center of Europe and home to numerous EU and international government agencies, to be an epicenter for foreign spy activity. Even if individuals are caught and prosecuted, the current maximum prison sentence is only 5 years, making operations there.
How hard is it to stay away from Austria then, right? EU and NATO, everybody like, just stay away from Austria. Why do anything there that anybody can like peep into it, right? Keep Austria away from your business. Like, isn't that easier? I don't know.
Low risk and high reward. Now, 5 years in a prison doesn't sound like a great time, but it's relatively speaking a lot less than what you'll get elsewhere. Many Austrian officials are pushing for harsher sentences for foreign spies and increased counterintelligence funding in order to no longer have
Yeah, 5 years is nothing. For treason and many things, people usually get life or even death penalties, right? 5 years is nothing.
this reputation as the spy capital of the world. As the number of convicted Russian spies continues to grow to this day, the governments of NATO member states are working to increase their own counterintelligence agencies to thwart this new wave of espionage. Now I've got to go call my CIA handler and let him know that I finished this video. If you guys enjoyed this video,
Yep, there you go. That's some insane shit. This video was awesome, man. I didn't know about Austria. That really surprised me. Like, where the fuck that come from? Okay, I guess I'm gonna have to see Austria in that light about the espionage thing. If it doesn't hurt Austria, just like free real estate, do whatever you fucking want. Okay. But damn, FSB, right? FSB's ability to like do all this thing, it feels really Hollywood type, right? But yeah, I guess CIA must do similar things. Many Mossad and things probably do similar things you just don't hear about. You hear about FSB thing because maybe Russia wants you to hear about it and create fear so people back off, right? I don't know. That just makes me think like our perception of war has been like going down since World War II. Like, you know, when the powerful countries we think of that can do war, it's like when actually war happens, like, I don't know, it doesn't like seem like they're that capable anymore type of way, right? So the whole thing of war, like China, let's say China, right, major power, but they don't have any history of, you know, fighting anything. Are they going to be good? Same thing with kind of like India, right? Any other country. USA hasn't been in war. Like, they have been in war with Afghanistan, Iraq, but like no major war in a long time. Russia, as you can see how it's happening right now. So when it comes to proper war, like, are they competent at that level? All the major countries? Who knows? But when it comes to spy things, they're still like up to date, right? They're still doing the Cold War level shit. Top level shit with assassination, espionage, burning shit down. Spies are working at full cylinders still, apparently. Alright, well, if you like my next one, subscribe and I'll see you next time.